Welcome in, everybody, to this deep dive
Yeah.
into the thought of Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might know him as someone who had incredible global reach.
Yeah.
Born in India, educated in England,
Mm-hmm.
became this really phenomenal teacher whose ideas just completely transcended any
Yeah.
single culture or religion.
That's true.
Yeah.
His work is really vast.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like over 75 books,
Wow.
countless recordings, translations into, I think, over 20 languages.
That's incredible.
But I think what is so captivating about Krishnamurti is that
Yeah.
he was so insistent that there's no one-size-fits-all path to truth.
Right.
You know, there's no guru to follow,
Yeah.
no dogma
Right.
you have to kind of blindly follow.
Yeah.
He really puts the responsibility on each of us to figure out how to live a meaningful life.
And that's
Yeah,
a pretty radical idea.
totally.
Right.
Especially back then.
Yeah, especially back then. I mean,
Yeah.
so much of what we're taught is like, find the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the
Yeah, find the right guru, find the right...
the right path.
Yeah, the right path,
But
exactly.
he was like, no.
He throws it all out the window.
You have to figure this out for yourself.
Yeah, and that's what makes his teaching so relevant, I think, even today.
Right.
Is this idea that, like, he's encouraging us to question everything,
Yeah.
to really examine our own minds
Mhm.
and to discover truth directly through our own experience.
Yes.
And I think that journey of self-discovery really starts with understanding what he called the self,
Okay.
the sense of me
Yeah.
that we so often cling to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that for a second.
Okay.
I've heard the term self
Yeah.
thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But in the context of Krishnamurti,
Yeah.
what did he
What did he mean by that?
really mean by that?
He saw the self,
Yeah.
not as our true nature,
Okay.
but as a kind of mental construct, a collection of beliefs,
Mhm.
memories,
Like,
experiences that we identify with.
okay.
And he believed that this self, this ego,
Mm-hmm.
is actually at the root of a lot of our suffering.
So we're
Yeah.
creating our own problems by clinging
Right.
to this idea of who we are.
That's the crux of it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
He said,
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing here, but he said,
Yeah.
the me is the source of all our conflicts.
Wow.
All of our fears and anxieties, we're constantly trying to protect this
Oh.
fragile sense of self,
Yeah.
and that creates a lot of tension and unhappiness.
So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But if
Right.
the self is the problem,
Yeah.
how do we get rid of it?
Right.
I mean, do we have to
Yeah.
become hermits and meditate in a cave for years?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of, I think, Krishnamurti's approach.
Okay.
He wasn't advocating for withdrawal from the world
Okay.
or some kind of aesthetic practice.
Right.
He believed that self-knowledge, true understanding,
Yeah.
comes through being present in our relationships,
Okay.
in our actions,
Mhm.
in our daily lives.
So it's not about escaping the world,
No,
but it's about
it's about paying attention
yeah.
to how we interact with it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
He said, and this is a quote,
Yeah.
self-knowledge is not a thing to be bought in books,
Okay.
nor is it a gift of gurus.
You're right.
It comes in relationship.
Hmm.
So he's really encouraging us to observe our thoughts, our feelings,
Mm.
our reactions, and our everyday interactions.
Yeah.
It's about seeing how this self that we've created
Right.
manifests in our relationships, in
Yes.
our work,
Mm-hmm.
in all aspects of our lives.
So instead of getting lost in our own heads,
Yeah.
we need to pay attention
Pay
to
attention to how we're showing up
how we're showing up in the world.
in the world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
He believed that by observing ourselves in action
Mm.
without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
we can begin to understand the patterns of our own thinking and behavior.
Okay.
And that self-awareness is really the first step towards freedom.
Okay. So this is starting to feel really practical. He distinguished between what he called intellect
Right.
and intelligence.
Okay.
And intellect for him was thought operating in isolation
Okay.
without emotion.
Interesting.
It's that analytical,
Yeah.
calculating part of our minds.
Yeah.
But true intelligence, he argued,
Yeah.
involves the integration of reason and love.
So it's not enough to just think things through.
No,
We need to bring our hearts into it.
exactly.
Okay.
I'm intrigued.
He said, and this is a quote that really struck me.
Yeah.
Intelligence is the capacity to perceive the essential,
Mm-hmm.
the what is.
Right.
Love is the action that arises from that perception.
Wow.
So for him, true intelligence wasn't just about
Right.
accumulating knowledge.
Yeah.
It was about acting from a place of understanding and compassion.
So how does this relate to the self that we were talking about
Right.
earlier?
Well, Krishnamurti believed that our thoughts,
Yeah.
shaped by our past experiences and conditioning,
Right.
often reinforce the illusion of a separate self.
Okay.
We get caught up
Yeah.
in this mental chatter,
Uh-huh.
this constant stream of judgments and comparisons and
Right.
worries,
Totally.
and that keeps us trapped
Yeah.
in this illusion of the mean.
So our thoughts are actually creating and maintaining
Totally.
this sense of a separate self.
Exactly.
Wow.
He saw thought as a kind of double-edged sword.
Mm.
On the one hand, it's essential for functioning in the world.
Right.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
it can create a lot of suffering when we become identified with it.
Right.
And he believed that true intelligence,
Yeah.
true freedom
Mm-hmm.
arises when the mind is still,
Okay.
when we're able to step back
Yeah.
from that constant stream of thought.
I think I get a glimpse of what that might feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like that sense of peace and clarity you get
Yeah, okay.
when you're totally absorbed in the present moment
Yeah.
and not lost in thought.
Yeah.
How do we actually cultivate that stillness? Is
Right.
that where meditation comes in?
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
But for Krishnamurti, meditation wasn't about sitting on a cushion and
Oh.
chanting mantras.
Right.
He saw it as a way of being,
Okay.
a way of paying attention to the workings of our own minds
Mm-hmm.
in everyday life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about bringing that mindfulness, that awareness into like everything we do, not just when we're sitting on a cushion trying to meditate.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He said, meditation is not a withdrawal from life,
Okay.
but a movement into the very heart of life.
Wow.
It's about observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment,
Right.
seeing them as they arise and pass away
Hmm.
like clouds in the sky.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thoughts like clouds.
It's a nice image.
It makes it seem less overwhelming,
Right.
less like I have to fight against my thoughts.
Yeah, you don't have to fight against them. You just
Yeah.
observe them.
Yeah.
You'll let them be.
Okay, well, speaking of overwhelming feelings,
Yeah.
what about things like fear and anger?
Yeah.
Did Krishnamurti...
He did.
said, whoa.
In a way that I think really challenges our conventional thinking.
Yeah.
He saw both fear and anger
Yeah.
as stemming from that same clinging to the self that
Okay.
we're talking about.
So the more attached we are to this idea of who we are,
Yes.
the more likely we are to.
The more fear and anger we're going to experience.
Yeah.
Experience fear and anger.
Exactly.
Okay.
He said,
Yeah.
fear is the result of wanting what is not
Right.
and rejecting what is.
Okay.
So when we're clinging to a particular image of ourselves
Okay.
or to a certain outcome,
Mm-hmm.
we create a lot of anxiety and fear
Right.
around anything that threatens that image or that outcome.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that, like fear of failure,
Uh-huh.
fear of not being good enough. It's
Yeah.
like I'm constantly trying to protect
Yeah.
this fragile ego from
Yeah.
being bruised.
Yeah.
But what about anger?
Right. How does that tie into this idea of the self?
Yeah, how does that tie into it?
Well, Krishnamurti believed that anger often arises from a sense of
yeah.
frustration or injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that frustration comes from our attachment
Yeah.
to a particular outcome,
Oh, yeah.
to how we think things should be.
Right.
And when reality doesn't match up to our expectations,
Uh-huh.
we lash out in anger.
It's like that.
That road rage thing we were talking about earlier. I get so angry when someone cuts me off
Uh-huh.
because I'm so attached to this idea
Yeah.
of a smooth, stress-free commute.
Exactly.
It's-
But if I could
You're attached to that outcome.
just let go of that attachment,
Yeah.
maybe I wouldn't get so worked up.
Yeah. And that's a great insight.
Yeah.
And it highlights, I think, a key point
Okay.
in Krishnamurti's teachings,
Yeah.
which is that freedom from suffering
Mm-hmm.
comes from letting go of our attachment,
Right.
from accepting what is rather than resisting it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it also raises some big questions for me.
Okay. Yeah.
If we're not supposed to cling to our sense of self,
Right.
what does that mean for things like passion,
Yeah.
ambition, even our sense of purpose in life?
Right.
Does it all just become meaningless?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And it's something that Krishnamurti addressed directly. He wasn't advocating for a life of passivity or apathy.
Right.
He believed that passion, true passion,
Yeah.
comes from a place of deep self-knowledge,
Okay.
from understanding what truly resonates with our hearts.
So it's not about denying our passions. It's about finding those things that truly align with who we are
Exactly.
at our core.
He said, and this is a quote that I really love, find that which you love to do, the thing that makes your heart sing, and then pursue it with all your being.
Wow.
He saw passion as a powerful force for good.
Okay.
A way to connect with something larger than ourselves.
Right.
And to make a positive impact on the world.
This is really making me rethink how I approach my work.
Yeah.
My relationships, even my hobbies. It's like I've been going through life on autopilot.
Right.
You know, following this script that was written for me.
Yeah.
Instead of listening to my own inner compass. And that's a common experience.
Yeah.
Especially in a society that often values conformity and external success over self-discovery and inner fulfillment.
Right.
And that's something that Krishnamurti was very critical of. He believed that true education, true learning should be about fostering that inner exploration, questioning spirit.
You mentioned earlier that Krishnamurti believed our thoughts often reinforce the illusion of a separate self.
Right.
How did he see that playing out in the way we educate children?
Well, Krishnamurti was a radical critic
of
the traditional education system.
Okay.
He saw it as perpetuating conformity, competition, and fear. All of which contribute to that sense of isolation and separation.
So instead of nurturing independent thought and creativity, our schools are actually reinforcing that, clinging to the ego that need to fit in and be successful.
That's a sharp observation. He believed that true education should be about cultivating critical thinking, curiosity, and compassion, not just churning out workers for the existing social order.
It sounds like he envisioned a world where children were encouraged to question everything, explore their own unique potential, and to contribute to society in a way that felt meaningful.
In a way that felt meaningful to them.
To them. But how did he think that could be achieved? Was he advocating for some radical new form of schooling?
It wasn't just about changing the curriculum or the structure of schools. He believed that true education is about awakening the whole person. About cultivating not just the intellect, but also the heart and the spirit.
That makes sense. It's not about memorizing facts and figures, but about developing a deep understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. But how does this individual transformation translate into social change?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, the world feels pretty chaotic and divided right now.
It does.
Did Krishnamurti believe it was possible to create a more peaceful and just society?
He did.
Yeah.
But he believed that change had to start from within. So he saw individual transformation as the foundation for a more just and compassionate society.
So we can't just wait for the world to change around us.
No.
We each have a responsibility to do the inner work. To become more aware.
More aware.
More compassionate.
More compassionate.
More loving.
More loving.
Yeah.
What about our relationships with other people?
Yeah.
How does this idea of non-attachment play out in love and intimacy?
Well, that's a fascinating area.
And one where Krishnamurti's teachings, I think, can be particularly challenging.
Yeah.
He had a very radical view of love. One that went beyond the conventional notions of romance and possessiveness.
So he wasn't talking about hearts and flowers.
Not exactly.
No, and happily ever after.
He saw true love as a state of being. A quality of awareness that transcends the limitations of the ego. And he believed that that kind of love a love that is free from attachment and neediness is the only kind that can truly bring lasting happiness.
That's a pretty high bar.
It is.
Isn't it? I mean, most of us are looking for someone to complete us.
Yeah. Most of us looking for someone
to make us happy.
To make us happy, to fill that void, to fix us in a way. But Krishnamurti is saying that true love comes from a place of wholeness. From within ourselves.
So from within.
From within.
Yeah. Okay.
He said, when you depend on another for your happiness, for your fulfillment, you are destroying both yourself and the other.
Wow.
So he believed that when we're clinging to another person out of need or insecurity, we're actually preventing ourselves from experiencing true love.
It sounds like he's saying that true love can only exist
Yes.
When we've done the inner work.
When we've done the inner work.
When we've freed ourselves.
We've freed ourselves
from those patterns of dependency and attachment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he believed that this kind of love, a love that is free from possessiveness and fear, can be a powerful force for transformation, both for ourselves and for the world around us.
It's like true love becomes this wellspring of freedom and compassion that radiates outwards.
Exactly.
Instead of being this grasping, needy.
Yeah, it's not about taking. It's about giving.
Right.
And Krishnamurti believed this applied not just to romantic love.
It's about seeing each person as a unique individual on their own journey.
Right.
Not as an extension of ourselves or a means to fulfill our own needs.
So even in our closest relationships, there's this element of like allowing space for the other person to be who they are.
Yeah.
Without trying to
control them or change them.
Control them or change them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He often used the metaphor of a flower.
Okay.
You can appreciate its beauty, its fragrance, without needing to pluck it and possess it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful analogy.
It's a nice image.
It really highlights the difference between appreciation and attachment.
Exactly.
But it also makes me think about all the things we do cling to in life.
Right.
Our possessions, our careers, even our ideas about how the world should be.
Our ideas, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And all of those attachments, Krishnamurti argued, ultimately lead to suffering.
Because the nature of life is impermanence, is change.
Right.
And the more we resist that change, the more we cling to things that are ultimately fleeting, the more we suffer.
It's like the tighter we grip onto something, the more it slips through our fingers.
Exactly like sand.
Yeah.
You can't hold on to it too tightly or it'll all slip away.
So he didn't shy away from addressing, I guess, one of the biggest sources of fear and attachment.
He didn't.
Which is death.
Yeah, death.
That's a topic most of us try to avoid.
Big time.
Yeah.
Most of us don't want to think about it.
So what was his perspective on death?
Well, Krishnamurti had a very unique and I think liberating view on death.
Okay.
He saw the fear of death as stemming from our identification with the self.
Right.
That sense of me that we think is going to disappear.
Yeah.
But he said, death is only the ending of something that is not real.
Wow.
The self, the ego. What continues is that which has always been life itself.
Okay.
The flow of energy.
It's like we're so focused on the small,
limited self
that we miss the vastness of what we truly are.
Exactly. We miss the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We miss that which is beyond birth and death.
So facing our fear of death can actually help us live more fully in the present.
It can.
It's a very counterintuitive idea.
Yeah.
But that's Krishnamurti for you. Right. He challenges our conventional thinking.
And it brings us back to the core.
Exactly.
Of his teachings.
Yeah.
The importance of self-knowledge.
Self-knowledge.
Understanding the workings.
Yeah, understanding how our minds work.
Of our own minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He believed that true freedom, true happiness, comes from a deep understanding of ourselves. From seeing through the illusions of the ego and recognizing our interconnectedness with all things. And that's a journey each of us has to take.
Each of us has to take on our own.
On our own
There's no guru, no dogma.
Yeah.
Just the willingness to look within.
Right.
And to question everything.
So what are some of those tools?
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, he emphasized the importance of mindfulness.
Okay.
Of paying attention to our thoughts, our feelings, our actions without judgment.
Okay.
He talked about the power of meditation.
Right.
Not as a way to escape from life.
Right.
But as a way to cultivate inner stillness and clarity.
It's like he was saying the answers we're looking for are already within us.
They are.
We just need to create the space.
We just have to create the space to hear them.
To hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to create that space, he encouraged us to let go of our attachments, to embrace the impermanence of life, and to cultivate a sense of love and compassion that extends beyond ourselves.
That's a pretty radical way of living, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a radical way of living.
To let go of everything.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned to cling to.
Yeah, to go against the grain of...
To trust that everything we need will be provided.
Yeah, it takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
It takes a leap of faith.
Well, this deep dive has been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding, not just of Krishnamurti's teachings, but of myself and my place in the world.
That's great to hear.
And it's definitely given me a lot to think about and to practice in my own life.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah.
I think that's the real gift of Krishnamurti's work, is a constant invitation to question, to explore, and to awaken to the truth of who we are.
And for those of you listening, we invite you to join us on that journey.
Please do.
Krishnamurti's teachings are a treasure trove.
They are.
Of wisdom waiting to be discovered. So keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
And keep diving deep.
Until next time.
See you then.